Double bind.
Double bind.
Double bind.
Double bind.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Double Bind, where you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Welcome to Being Black. I am your host, Springle, and on this episode, this is probably my biggest episode so far in terms of guests. I have three in-house guests with me. Of course, they're always friends, and the topic for today would be Black love. Is it relevant or unnecessary in framing that? So here we have, straight out of Brooklyn, we have Kenya, Abdul out of Brooklyn as well, and then we have Fran out of Jersey. So say hello to our listeners, folks.
Hello.
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 You guys sound like a bad commercial. Let's just start with Francesca. What do you think in terms of Black love? Do you think we as Black people should focus on and framing it in the context of race and being with your own kind? Or do you think that it's not necessarily something we should focus on as a people?
I believe we should always focus on love. When my personal relationship is the strongest, I feel like every other aspect is impacted in a positive way. It's almost like you gotta take care of home first. And if you nurture that, I feel like we're better prepared to face any kind of obstacles or anything that is being thrown our way in the world. And we should always start with that. It may sound a little cliche, but this is the foundation. Got you.
Abdul, what do you think?
Black love is definitely needed. Black love back in the day was something that was, that was impactful for us. For me, I think along the way it started to stray in a certain manner. You like you said, you had a set of us who thought like it would be better off for us to go outside Black love and maybe find love somewhere else. And then you have a set of us who, we're gonna ride it out and we're gonna build back the foundation and just go from there. So yeah, I definitely agree with it. Black love is definitely needed.
So Kenya, Black love, do you think that's something that we need to focus on, or do you believe love is love and we should just look for it wherever you can find it?
I mean, I've never really dated outside of my race. So I would definitely say, in my opinion, I choose to stick with Black love because certain things I don't have to explain. It's already understood. And I feel like if you go outside of your race, then that's adding another element to everything that's going on. I do believe love is love and you should love whomever loves you. But personally, I choose Black love. I'm not coming home to someone saying all lives matter. There's been a few situations of friends who have decided to date outside of their race, and now they're crying, talking about the person that I've been sharing my space with is racist.
Yes, the cliche.
I mean, personally, I'm all for Black
what about
love.
people who are in situations where they can't? For example, think of a state, let's say like Wyoming, where you don't have access to that many Black people. Should that person sort of up and move to a larger city to pursue that Black love, or should they just go forward with whoever, is in proximity?
I mean, love is love. Me personally, I'm always going to be in a space where there's a lot of Black people. That's just for me.
I think for us, most of us, we need that comfort.
Yeah, if you live overseas, let's just say Japan, then sure, if you're surrounded by, Japanese people and there's a Japanese mate that, meshes with you, then absolutely go for it.
Do we believe that the state of Black America, in terms of all the things we deal with, from racism to classism and just the general challenges that we face as Black people within this country, do we feel as if that adds even more pressure on Black people? So then you have two people, male and female, or male and male, female and female, you know, for those who are in that category. You have two people who are facing so much pressure on the outside world trying to build something. Do you guys think that that actually adds even more stress?
Yes, absolutely. Weakens our relationship, challenges our relationship. Absolutely. I wanted to add, talking about Black love, to not just reduce it to just romantic relationship, right? Because everything Black in the world, now since we're talking about America, has been threatened. And when we think about during the slavery days where Black people couldn't even profess the love to each other, and how it makes you think how that foundation has been
shaken, weakened. Yeah.
You already know that we're starting at a disadvantage even in our most intimate relationship with each other. And now you add all the other layers in terms of like employment, in terms of like dealing with society. I remember there are times where my husband, before he even comes back, I'm already worried, right? If he forget to call me to tell me that there was a detour, he has to pick up something else, he didn't let me know. Just knowing the state we live in and the system we live in adds stress. So of course, when he comes like 10 minutes late, my reaction to him might be different. So we cannot separate them.
Good point. Good point. Abdul, you and I have talked about this outside of the podcast, and you feel like a lot of Black women don't seem to appreciate Black men. What do you mean by that? Or give me some more perspective, or give us a little bit more perspective on that statement you made to me.
I think there's always been a mistrust between the Black man and the Black woman. And if you go back to the times where Black men were being raped or basically being dehumanized in front of women, and women were being raped or dehumanized in front of the Black man, a mistrust has been built up because the woman looks at the man and says, you know what, you can't protect me. And then the man looks at the woman and says like, yo, you know what, it's not much that I can do for her because I don't have the opportunities to economically take care of her. When you create an environment where you destroy the Black home and basically take away the Black man out of it by whatever means possible, whether it be economically or sexually or whatever, that leaves a lot of mistrust in the community. And then Black love suffer because of that. So just like I was explaining to you and Francesca last night, anytime you have a Black couple who basically beats the odds and is able to create a foundation and have a family, they don't know how important, you understand, that accomplishment is, because we live in a system that has been constructed to destroy that. Whenever you have a Black man who can provide for his family, has a stable home, and is not running around with 10 different women or whatever else like that, that's a big accomplishment.
If we don't have role models and examples of men sort of taking care of the home and taking care of the responsibilities, where are they going to get that teaching from? Where are they going to get those?
You can kind of create that, don't you think? Me personally, I was a product of a single parent. I don't have any children now. For me, in order for me to actually bring a child to life, I need to be married. I don't care if it's just 2 days. At least I set up that foundation for my child, because I know what it's like to grow up without a father in the home. As a Black woman dating, I don't feel protected by Black men. Wow. Definitely. Even in an instance of like an argument or domestic violence, I would see a woman being abused by a man, and other men would just walk by like nothing's happening, and I'd see a woman standing up for that other woman that's being abused. Again, the Black woman, I don't feel protected.
That's why Black men shouldn't define manhood and what it means to be a man based on Western standards. But it's really our job to each other and for each other to build each other. So there has to be some sort of like reciprocity when we are dealing with each other, when we are loving each other, when we are living with each other, right? So you build me, I build you. It cannot be a one-way street, one-way thing. The problem is in this society, in this world, I don't support the idea of the super black woman, because it seems like a lot of times they want the black woman to continue being the mule of our society. So what happened when our backs are broken because we carry so much? Who's gonna come and pick us up and take care of us and build us? We're building ourselves, and we're building everybody else, and we clean everybody else's messes. It can't just be that. And you can even see, even in terms of like police brutality towards black men versus towards black women. When it's a black man, and I'm not saying we can't come and be at the forefront for them, you see black women fighting, advocating, and doing the work.
That's really interesting. And it's funny because I've seen examples of that online, especially, again, you know, speaking on these times with police brutality and all these protests. A lot of times the more braver of the two sexes would be the woman in the face of police brutality, which is weird. But again, the bigger society in itself weighs heavy on men. And I'll be honest, I'm a black male. Abdul, you know, myself, can both tell you, I think the pressures on black men, just being men in this world and walking in our manhood, it is a different level. I think women, because they're not seen so much as a threat to other men, I think in some ways women may have it a little easier.
I don't agree with easier, because we have to deal with bullshit at work and then come home and then get it from your man too. So it's like, where's our release?
When Springle said easier, as far as black men, we have always been brutalized at a higher level than women have been. If you go back to colonial times until now, we've always been brutalized. So if you speak, when we speak about levels, it's not that we're not saying that black women haven't gone through trauma, but black men have gone through more trauma because we have always been seen as a threat. If a black woman and a black man is in a car and the police pulls over the car, his eyes is going to be trained more on the black man, because he's been taught in the academy that the black man is the one who's going to pull the gun and shoot him. So his eyes is going to be trained on him. His hand is going to be on his gun, because he feels like that man is a threat. The woman in the other instance, he's not going to look at her as a threat. We have always been brutalized at a higher level in a racist society. Not saying that the black woman has not been traumatized, not taking away anything from that. But if you look at the facts and the history of how black men have been treated in this system, we have always been brutalized, from lynchings, shootings. We have been killed at a higher rate than women. So we have always been brutalized at a higher level.
I agree to some of the points that you have raised, Abdul, to a certain extent, and I don't like comparing trauma. At the end of the day, we're talking about living in a race, dealing with racism. So we deal with racism, that's one thing. Then women come back home and they deal with patriarchy. And there are aspects in the society that favor you more than they favor women, period. Also understand the women who are the machine that drives the system, that sustains the system. Yes, and also there are times where this society don't see black women as women. Because another thing I'm going to say, if you define being a woman by being caring, by handling your business, by being nurturing, even when black women, even when the children were taken away from them, they were still breastfeeding other people's children. They were still caring for other people's children. So that one of them never sees. So we got to redefine what it means to be a man. Like, how can you still be there for your family and still contribute? It may not be financial. Are you a good caretaker? Then you do that. Are you a builder? Then you go home and build. There's a lack of learning or knowledge in that department. Then you show up. And I'm going to add, because I know Kenya said that she wants to raise, if she wants to have a family, it has to be a 2-parent family. It cannot just be any 2-parent family. It cannot be toxic.
No, I don't think it's her job to build a man, because I've been in situations that women that earn more than me, and I never feel intimidated by them. And because I think growing up, part of my life, my grandmother raised me. So I've always grown up around strong women. You understand? So My grandmother basically taught me as a man, you know, you're supposed to take care of a woman, but not be intimidated by her. So when I met women who earned more than me, I didn't have a problem with that because my thing is to build. So even although she earns more than me, we still sit down and we still go over financial responsibilities or whatever else like that. So that has never been. But some of us black men, we have this thing where we feel like we should be the ultimate provider in the family or whatever, dating or relationship.
But that's not specific to black men, though. I think that's just men in general, no?
There you go.
What do you guys think can be some tools or techniques we can use to help solidify our relationships, not only with each other, but within ourselves and within our greater families and our communities?
I would say therapy. Learn about what those traumas look like, try to cope with that, and then, this is just an assumption, I guess when you're in therapy and you're healing yourself and you're meeting someone else, you kind of get to see, this is what I like, this is not what I don't like. This is toxic. That's just a suggestion. I don't know. I'm still single.
So am I. I think most of us are.
I am currently in therapy, and in being in therapy now, I've looked at, I don't know, it's different now. Like, especially with dating, certain cues that I don't like, I'm able to pick up on them quicker and make a better decision for myself. I would definitely say it has helped me in that department so far.
Like therapy, I think one of the first things that we have to do is repair ourselves. We have to definitely repair ourselves, and the healing process that we have to go through. Communication, learning how to communicate effectively with each other is also good too. Nowadays, couples don't really have a support system that they can fall back on if the two of you are not in agreement. Back in the day, you had a support system that you could go to help you, keep things in order and keep things together.
Yeah. Why is there such a strong stigma attached to therapy in the black communities? I mean, and this is across the diaspora, whether it's the Caribbean, whether it's Africa, whether it's the US.
Because they say like, oh, you're going to a therapist, you must be crazy. Even in my family, like I recently lost my mother, and then I've experienced trauma on top of trauma on top of trauma. And I can't talk to my family members because, so one of my aunts actually, when she heard that I was in therapy, she started cracking up. She called everybody and was like, oh, did you hear Kenya's in Kenya's in therapy? And the younger generation, they're like, yeah, what's the problem? She's trying to laugh and they're like, I don't get the joke. So just pure ignorance. Oh, be strong and pray. Prayer. Like, yeah, when it happened, I did open up my Bible. I didn't feel better. I started to feel better when I spoke to my therapist about it. You know what I mean? And she gave me coping mechanisms.
Francesca, did you want to say something?
I do. First of all, Kenya, I'm so sorry for your loss. I dealt with stuff like that. And there have been times where I actually want to cry and let it out. Then I'm being told while I was grieving, you gotta be strong. You can still be strong and seek therapy. You can still be strong and take a day off for yourself. You can still be strong and say, I am not okay. Because when you know that you have all these emotions and you are humans, then you know that this is your right to handle it properly that way. So I think the ignorance about not needing therapy and always turning to the Bible. Yes, you can open up your Bible and pray, but there are times, if you're hungry, are you going to open up your Bible? You're going to go get something to eat. So yes, you can open your Bible and pray if this is your faith. You can open the Quran and pray if it's your faith. You can meditate if this is what helps you. But you can still go to therapy at the same time. And the church needs to take a stand and start advocating for our freedom in that sense, for our healing. So I'm sorry that you had a very ignorant aunt who doesn't get it. And hopefully, she'll seek therapy herself.
Kenya, to second what Francesca is saying, sorry for your loss with your mother also, right? Me and Springle was having this talk last night, and Springle, do you mind saying that you went to therapy?
No, not at all. I mean, I'm very much an advocate for therapy at this point. Yeah.
I was saying to him last night, you know, even I myself is looking to seek therapy now, because growing up, like the both of you, you know, have said, is that therapy has been looked upon as a negative, especially in the Black community. And being that we have been so traumatized throughout our lives, it's important to have somewhere where you can go and just lay all your feelings out on the table without being judged. Because I think that's one of the main things with us, is that we want to be in a space where we're not judged. So therapy is that space for us. And it also gives us the opportunity to find some solutions to deal with our personal issues. And even as men, we've been taught that we should be tough, we shouldn't express feelings. I'm like, no, that. If I want to sit down in the dark and cry, let me sit down in the dark and cry. If I want to talk to somebody about my feelings, I'm going to talk to somebody about my feelings, because I don't feel like being strong or doing this is going to help me anyway, because I'm not finding any solutions with being strong. And I think that within the Black community has caused a lot of problems. So you, not even just talking gender, but you have a lot of people walking around with issues that they don't have any solutions. So that turns into aggression, and that aggression they use against each other.
I have a theory. So much of how we operate as Black people in the modern world is based in the conditions of our enslavement, or the enslavement of our ancestors. There's a professor by the name of Dr. Joy DeGruy, and she is the person that came up with the phrase post-traumatic slave syndrome. And within a lot of her talks, which you can find on YouTube, she speaks on how we normalize a lot of negative behaviors. So in regards to the stigma attached to therapy, I believe that is based in, this is just my personal theory, I believe that is based in the root of being seen as weak. You know, if you look back and you think about, say, the slave mother, she has no control over what happens to her children when they're stripped away from her and sold away. So in some ways, the human mind has an amazing capacity for malleability in terms of trauma. So your mind can actually work itself in certain ways, perverse ways, to help you deal with trauma. And unfortunately, I think in regards to therapy, being seen as weak back in those days, I think would not have helped her. Because, you know, Massa doesn't care if you had a bad day. Massa doesn't care that you're sad, you know, that he just sold your second baby or your third baby. So in some ways, she will carry herself as a strong woman. Seeing her husband also sold away to, you know, another family, seeing her husband abused. And I think those things are kind of rooted in, again, the enslavement of our people from hundreds of years ago. So now we've normalized always needing to be strong versus being weak. You know what I mean? This is just my personal theory. But again, I feel like that's kind of related to all of that.
This is the shit, this is the cards we're dealing with, right? But what we do with it, how we turn it around, how we overcome, that's our beauty as a people, right? And I'm not trying to glorify being resilient, because that shit is exhausting. Like Kenya said, being strong is exhausting. But we really are the victims, right? And when you talk about like, you can't even be your true self, when you realize that they have to pass a law, they have to legalize for you your natural hair to be okay.
Good point. But in terms of beauty and being attractive to Black men, wearing a weave or wearing your natural hair, do either of you feel more or less beautiful in your natural state? Or do you feel like men see you as less beautiful in your natural state?
Depending on who it's coming from. Like, I've had certain jobs where my hair, my natural kinky hair, is an issue. Where I was told, oh, is your hair weaved? Because it needs to be weaved for this particular client.
A lost Black man will want to have what the white men have, because that means power, that means whatever, because it defines beauty through the eyes, through the lens of white men. He will want his Black woman to kind of like have that proximity to whiteness. So the weave, he will prefer that. he will even give you money, go get your hair done and give you a weave. But personally, my own little circle, my creative circle, the men that I married, he loved me with my natural hair. But that natural hair didn't start with me being with a black man.
No, I feel most beautiful with my natural hair.
Abdul, do you have a specific preference in terms of how you prefer your women to present themselves?
As a young boy coming up, I was conditioned to love a woman in her natural state. And I always tell women this. I tell them straight up. I say, I don't date women with weaves in. You understand? I don't like it. It's something that I do not like. So especially as a man speaking, yeah, I love a woman in her natural state. I love that naturalness about a woman. Because it shows me consciously she understands that she's embracing her true self.
It's more than that, Abdul. It's more than just embracing our true self. There's a survival aspect of this. There's a coping aspect of this. My hair is natural, but there are times if I'm going to a job interview, I don't know who the heck is going to interview me. There are times where I do put a wig on just because I'm like, shit, I want to get the job. So I don't like people policing black women in terms of what we do with our bodies and our hair. I don't like that stuff.
Yes. No matter what we do, we're policed. When my hair is natural, it's power to the people. And when I have a long, what I call fantasy hair, it's, oh my God, you're so gorgeous. But I'm the same person.
And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in. We're going to wrap up right now. My guests, I'm so happy you guys joined me for this conversation. Thank you, Francesca. Thank you, Kenya. Thank you, Abdul. We will definitely do a part 2 because, again, there's a lot to unpack here. There's many layers attached to our relationships, but I think we can all agree therapy is a huge tool we can utilize to help us build ourselves and our families. And also for men, holding each other and holding ourselves accountable for how we view our women and how we project our likes and dislikes onto our women. Once again, thank you so much. Do not forget to hit subscribe. Find us on Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, as well as Anchor FM. Once again, tune in next week for another episode of Double Bind.